Let me tell you about what I've learned in the last 8 years of having a mini Jersey. Some people are horse crazy, but boy, did I go crazy wanting a mini Jersey. Mini Jerseys are sweet cows that produce some of the best milk. Now, Miss Moo probably wasn't a true mini. I remember being kind of bummed that she was on the taller side, until I had the experience of buying a milk machine after a hand injury. I'd always hand milked, and I actually really enjoyed hand milking. However, after milking 4.5 to 5 gallons every day, year after year, I finally broke down and bought a really expensive milking machine, and I ended up hating it. So did Miss Moo. I ended up paying almost $600 to ship it back, which was a hard lesson learned. So what my family wanted was a reasonable amount of milk. We don't have a large family, unlike many homesteaders that I see. They have large families and can utilize about 4 gallons a day. We're not heavy milk drinkers, but boy do we love Greek yogurt. I love having grass-fed butter. Occasionally I make ice cream, and I've even tried making cheeses. I ended up having a fridge in my house, in my laundry room, and in my basement. I had 3 fridges, full-size refrigerators full of milk, and was making cheese and butter every single day. Oh yeah, and I know everybody says feed the pigs and soak your chicken's food in it. And I was, and I still couldn't use it all. My family could not keep up with the production of just one single dairy cow. So I've quickly discovered that although I love the milk, 4 gallons a day was overwhelming and exhausting, to be honest. All I was doing was processing milk and washing dishes, it felt like. And in our little farmhouse, we didn't have a dishwasher for the longest time. Thankfully, now I have a little portable dishwasher I can wheel up to the sink and start. So that was one thing about mini Jerseys that was really exhausting, was the amount of milk. If you can use 4 gallons a day, then that is great, and that wouldn't be a con for you. But for my family, it was beginning to be too much. We use approximately half a gallon a day would be more than enough to supply our entire family's needs. We only do a pig every other year, so we don't actually have the ability to utilize that every single year. So that was one con for us about mini Jerseys. Thank you, Bella. What's all over? Did you splash a little bit of the foam on you?
Yeah, no.
Just a lot of people say that they have a hard time being 100% grass-fed for their mini Jerseys. I haven't experienced that myself. Just started out putting weight on our cow by feeding alfalfa pellets and free choice hay with loose minerals and loose selenium salt, and had a really good experience with her gaining weight. Because of the situation that we got her in and the condition she was in, we always disease tested her from the beginning. We had a vet come out and we did labs when we first got her, and then every 6 months thereafter for 8 years. She never tested positive for anything, which I think also is sometimes what causes weight loss in some cows, is an undiagnosed disease, which can be a controversial topic that I also did a video on, and I'll link that one also at the end of the video. But she never had any problems with weight. She gained weight really well, and we never fed grain. So although some people seem to have a problem with Jerseys not keeping weight on without that grain supplementation, we never had that issue. But that may not be the experience other people have had with mini Jerseys. But for us, that was a plus. So the first breeding that we tried was with AI, because we lived somewhere where we definitely couldn't have a bull. And that didn't work all 3 times that we tried. So we ended up giving up on AI and getting her a friend. We knew we would be moving soon to property and that we could have more cows, and cows really shouldn't be kept alone. Although I think it really helped with bonding and training that I was her companion, was able to work with her, and she was pretty wild when I got her and ended up being like a puppy dog and my best friend at the end of the training. So that time that I spent with her one-on-one ended up really paying off, although she still was really lonely for cow bovine companionship. So we drove a state away to go get a bull calf. In anticipation of having more room, we knew that we would have the space for one. And although it's not advisable to keep a bull for just one cow, we didn't know the area and we didn't have contacts for AI out there. We were moving an hour away. And so we chose to go buy a bull calf. What we wanted was a Dexter bull, but we couldn't find one. And so we ended up driving to Oregon for the next best thing that we had no experience with, which was a mini zebu. Now, mini zebu, we had heard, are hardy. They're fly and disease resistant, and they're really good at living off of forage that wouldn't be considered good enough for most dairy cows. They're also A2, and we thought small is better, and that is how we started our herd. It wasn't really what we had thought we wanted, but it ended up being really an awesome choice that we didn't find out until many years later. Mini zebus mature a lot slower than mini jerseys. Wouldn't be able to breed until he was almost 2 years old. And we were able to find a lady that would allow us to bring her to her farm and be field bred with her Dexter bull. We wanted to breed her to something that would be easy for her to calve, and Dexters were small enough that we felt like that would be a good choice. So our first calf with Miss Moo, mini Jersey Dexter calf, and he was a tank. He grew like a weed. So as you can see, this guy turned out to grow really, really well and very fast on the milk. And thankfully, he was able to drink most of the milk. We still had 2 gallons a day coming in though, even when he was 9 months old. And that still was a lot of milk for us. Our other goal with having cows besides dairy was that we wanted to provide our own beef. Since we have a small family, we didn't need a lot of beef, and we wanted to be able to do the butchering ourselves. We felt that that would be the best way for us to get the knowledge and experience to be able to provide our own food. Instead of spending the money on butcher fees, we invested it in equipment so we could do it ourselves. So that's what we did. We spent the money instead of butcher fees on equipment. That way we could use it for years to come, and that investment would pay for itself multiple times over. She had the first Dexter Cross bull calf, but the following year our mini zebu bull was mature enough to breed, and she had a heifer calf. Our first heifer calf we wanted to keep, but we learned pretty soon that mini zebu, if they're not handled from birth, and possibly unless they're bottle fed, were pretty wild. Their personalities were not as gentle and docile as the mini jerseys, which was a hard lesson for us because we actually wanted to keep her. We ended up selling her next 2 calves, which were both heifers. We live on a pretty modest income, and we really try to live debt-free and save as much money as possible. That's pretty important to us. So by the sale of those 2 heifer calves, we were able to pay for hay and alfalfa for the whole year for our cows. Her 4th calf was also a heifer, but this was the first difficult birth that she had. Her 4th heifer calf, Noelle, was born breech. This was the first birth that we ended up having to assist, and boy was that a difficult birth. Thankfully, my husband and I were there during the birth, and he was able to save her. Without him, I could not have helped that calf be born. To pull a calf that is breech, and usually the umbilical cord breaks as you're pulling, and if you don't get the calf out soon enough, they can suffocate. After her 4th birth, she was producing about 5 gallons of milk a day, and 2 weeks after she had given birth, she went down with milk fever. We had the vet out, we gave IV calcium magnesium, CMPK is what it's called, and she recovered from that quite quickly. On her 5th calf, that is when disaster struck. She went down hard with milk fever right after giving birth, and we had the vet out immediately. The next morning, I found her down again, and we had the vet out again. We asked the vet what we should do for diet, and everything that we were told was what we were doing. We were told that mini jerseys, or jerseys in particular actually, because of their high production, and after her having so many calves, which we didn't consider 5 to be an excessive amount, and we weren't breeding every 12 months, we would wait about every 15 months. And her condition was always really good. We'd always given a multi-mineral and a Bo-C shot after each birth. So we didn't know what to do because she went down again 3 days after that. And the vet came out and again dosed her with CMPK and told me basically that there was nothing more that they could do and that they wouldn't be coming out again and that my only option was to put her down. She had stopped eating and she'd been down for 3 days and it wasn't looking good. In our area, it's kind of hard to get a vet to come out, and most just work with commercial dairies. And what they told us was that after about 5 lactations, they usually ship their older cows. The average productive lifespan of a dairy cow in the US is about 4 to 5 years. This was devastating news to us because from everything we'd read, we expected her to live out her life until old age and die around 12 to 20. And we weren't expecting this. After how hard it was to nurse her back to health, despite the vet's poor prognosis, we beat the odds though. We got her to start eating, got her rumen to start working. However, because she had been down for so long, she ended up getting her first case of mastitis, which was terrible. After we got her back to health and she had 6 months of the summer with her heifer calf, we decided to wean her calf around 6 months, when normally we wean at about 9 months, and butcher her while she was happy and healthy, so that way she wouldn't suffer. We knew we couldn't risk breeding her again. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make, and a lot of people are really against the idea of butchering their horse or their pet cow. And what I'd have to say is, after what I've seen happen to some well-loved horses in old age, is worse than ending up feeding your family. The following year, her first heifer calf ended up calving. She had the traits of the mini Jersey, of the creamy milk, A2A2, and grass-fed. Yet she was smaller and longer-legged, easier to milk, had only produced about 1 gallon a day versus 4 to 5 gallons that we were getting from her mom on her first lactation. This year, she just had her second calf, and she's doing phenomenally. She seems to remember the routine from milking, and we were getting about 1 gallon also a day with the calf on this year. So mini Jerseys are a wonderful breed of cow, especially if you're looking for something that's small. Although I would have to say mini Jerseys are about as big around and wide as a standard size cow, just on shorter legs. I don't use a milking machine anymore, but as you can see in Homesteady's video, their little mini Jersey has to stand up on a modified milk stand to get the milking claw underneath them. So that can be a complication of having mini Jerseys, is that they have really short legs, and it's sometimes really hard to get a milking bucket or a milking claw underneath them. So that's something to think about. Mini Zebus. Ours are not micro mini Zebus. There are ones that are about the size of a goat. We just have the standard mini Zebu. And I have found that mini Zebus are a lot longer legged and a lot more petite overall. Their circumference, they're not like a barrel stuck on short legs like mini Jerseys can look a little bit more stout. Miss Moo, who was probably actually mid-size, probably weighed 850 pounds, and her daughter at full size and 3 years old probably weighs about 600 is my best guess. Now that brings me to the topic of feed. Mini Jerseys do eat less than, say, a Holstein, and they do weigh less. They're probably 400 pounds less. However, they still eat quite a bit. And I don't know if Homesteady has ever said how much of a standard size square bale they eat a day. I don't know if they use those still or if they use round bales. But our mid-sized mini Jersey, she would eat a bale a day when there was no pasture. Easily herself, just her. She would eat that in a day. And you can imagine how much poop that would be. Probably a wheelbarrow full when she was in the barn. We put our cows in the barn in the winter, and they're on pasture in the summer. So in the summer, we don't have to muck out the stalls. But I have a pretty good idea of how much poop she produced each day in the barn, because we don't do deep bedding, and I muck it out like a horse stall daily or twice a day, actually. And that ends up being quite a bit of work, keeping up with the manure. And although I garden extensively, it ended up being way more than I could even handle. Each year I'd move the compost pile, and I was beginning to run out of room and places to put a compost pile on our property. It was getting to be a little bit overwhelming, to be honest. Miss Moo's daughter, Noelle, who's half mini Jersey and half mini Zebu, she eats about 1/4 of a bale a day. 2 flakes in the morning, 1 flake midday, and then another 2 in the evening. So about 1/4 of a bale a day, which is a considerable amount less than what a mini Jersey would eat. And so that can end up costing more and being a lot more work when you start to get a little bit older, like my husband and I, and that becomes kind of a daunting chore each year to get enough bales stacked. We don't have a tractor, and so we can't really work with round bales, and that's a physical toll that after some of my health problems I haven't been able to conceivably keep up with. I'm going to tell you guys a secret. The biggest difference between a mini Jersey, well, any actual breed of cow, since we've had a few other breeds of cows over the years too, and they've all had one thing in common: cow splats, which are nothing like horse poop. The difference is night and day. My sister is a horse person, and I can tell that she is not exactly thrilled to have cows because of that fact. They're messy, they're liquidy, and they're just no fun to work with. But the secret is mini zebus. Their poop is nothing like a cow's poop. It is closer to a horse. Same diet, and both are cows. So you would think that all cows have cow poop. Not so. Even though I have now half mini Jersey, half mini zebu as my entire herd, they are all half zebu, half mini Jerseys. So these cows all inherit that trait from the mini zebu, as their poop is not like cow poop. It is so easy to scoop and clean their stall. The amount of poop, like I said, they're only eating a quarter of a bale of hay in quantity a day. They're only making a quarter of the amount of poop. And yes, only a quarter of the amount of milk. But that's all we need because we just have one child at home. So our needs aren't as great. Anybody that has had cows, probably their biggest bane is dealing with the manure. I still get enough for my garden, and I don't feel overwhelmed anymore. That's been our experience with mini Jerseys. Absolutely, I'm so thankful for Miss Moo. She is the matriarch and the foundation of every cow we've had since, and she has a special place in my heart and always will. And I'm so thankful for what she's taught me. I've learned so much because of her. So if you're thinking of getting cows, I definitely recommend mini Jerseys. They're an awesome breed of cow.